Hello, welcome to B.Y.O.B. Conversations with Berneta and Lornett. I'm Lornett Vestal. This is my lovely wife, Berneta Haynes. And fellas out there, don't be looking. All right, I see y'all. We'll be discussing the Faders and Alpha series, the first book, Even the Faders, that came out January 1st, 2021. So if you haven't got your copy yet, get it now. So we wanted to do a worldwide book tour. However, it's a pandemic. We want to be socially distanced. So the best way we can reach the masses is via Zoom. So thank you for joining us. And we're going to talk about one of the main characters from the first book in the series, Even the Faders. And we'll be talking about Agent Olivia Yu. So Berneta, take us away.
All right. Well, thanks to everyone who is tuning in and joining us for this discussion. This will be the first in sort of a series of sort of monthly-ish conversations that really revolve around the Faders and Alphas series. Obviously, since the first book in the series is Even the Faders, we're going to be talking about Even the Faders for a while here. Now, I want us to talk a little bit about Agent Olivia Yu and essentially our thoughts about Agent Olivia Yu. What are her what's so interesting about her actions? What do you understand about her motivations throughout the story? What would you say seems to be her driving motivation throughout the story? And how do we feel about her by the end of the story? You may be wondering where we're snatching these questions from. Well, these questions come from these snazzy little bookmarks that we've created that are also digitally available on the site at BernetaHaynes.com. I created these questions with my co-writer here, Lornett, because we figured people have book clubs and sometimes don't want to actually have to come up with discussion questions on their own. So we created some discussion questions. Now, so let's get to answering this question. And we're going to answer it as if we're just regular readers of the book, because believe it or not, for a lot of authors, our characters get away with from us, and they do take on a life of their own. And we kind of are sitting on the sidelines too, watching the characters do things that we didn't necessarily expect them to do. So again, the question is, what are your thoughts about Agent Olivia Yu's actions throughout the story? What would you say seems to be her driving motivations? And how do you feel about her by the end of the story? I'm going to let Lornett jump in first while I take a sip.
She just wants to get a little drunk, and she wants to get me drunk. No, I'm just joking. So let's talk about Agent Olivia Yu. So my thoughts is kind of thinking about writing characters. So it's this thing. This is kind of my first novel that I ever written. I wasn't ever intended to be a writer and things of that nature, but thanks to my lovely wife here, she encouraged me. So when you're writing characters and you're coming up with a story, you might have an idea in your head, you might even outline it. But as the story flows and you're going in the zone, the characters can take a life of their own and become far more interesting than you ever imagined. And I think the interesting thing about Agent Olivia Yu is that she's kind of a wild card in the story, which you have to read to get all the details. But she kind of operates, she has a code, but her code is a little bit amoral. She's going to do what's best for her, but also she believes in the mission that the organization she's working for, and she believes in the mission, and she will do whatever it does to complete the mission, despite all the obstacles that she may deal with. So she's going to do what she has to do to get her mission accomplished. Yeah. And then also what's very interesting is there's layers to this character. So she might be a little amoral, but you find out things about her work, politics going on in her work, find out about her family life. So she's a very layered and complex character that people may end up really liking. People might have other opinions about. Who knows? You got to read the story to figure out. But I say she's a very complex character in Even the Faders.
Yeah, I would say that that's definitely all pretty much to the nails it for the most part. She is a woman who will do whatever it takes to achieve her mission. Her mission may not always be what we feel it should be from a moral standpoint, but for her, she has a goal in mind. She has a mission. This is what it was supposed to be. This is what she's planning to do to make sure that she sees it through. I always think about characters and consider, like, how would I feel about this person in real life if I met them? And for me, with Agent Yu, I'm pretty sure that if I worked with someone like her or just knew her in real life, I would probably always sleep with one eye open, so to speak. I would never entirely trust her, but I think I would be able to probably predict her behaviors a little bit once I realize she's a very mission-driven individual. Agent Yu is, as Lornett said, a very layered character that has a lot of complexities to why, that really goes into why she's the way she is. There's a lot of a background detail that give a good sense, I would say, to the readers about why she's making certain decisions throughout the story. Do I agree with all of her decisions? Will readers agree with all her decisions? That's between you and your God. That's the way I look at it. But for me, I do feel like that by the end of the story, I understood Agent Yu pretty thoroughly. She did not turn out the way that I thought the character was going to turn out when I went into writing it. I know it always sounds cheesy when authors say that, oh, my characters ran away from me and they just have a life of their own. But it's really pretty true. You never really have full control over the story entirely from beginning to end, from first draft to final draft. So this character really did things that I did not see coming, but I understood it by the end of the story. And I was kind of, sort of rooting for her, even if I maybe don't think I should have been.
We were all rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. My thoughts about Agent Yu also to kind of after, obviously we wrote the story together and kind of on the final draft, rereading it once again with fresh eyes. It was a begrudging respect for her at the end, but throughout the story, it's kind of figuring out where she's at and what is her true motivations, and you're kind of less guessing throughout the story. Mm-hmm. So you got to read the book to kind of figure out what that story is, but we're not going to give you the answers.
No, you will definitely have to figure it out on your own as you continue through the journey of the story. And I will say that readers are invited to trust Agent Yu in the beginning because our central title character Eve trusts her enough to take the job that she's offered. So you are invited to trust Agent Yu. It's just eventually you are probably going to question whether or not that was misguided in the beginning.
Don't give away too much.
No, you will I'll just say you will question your own perceptions about the character as you get further through the story. But I really felt it was important to write a character like this whose nuance is not your typical, just evil villain with no layers or anything. We've seen it. We've seen enough Hellas. You know what I mean? So I thought it was very important to create a villain that has some layers and a woman villain that has some layers, a woman of color villain, but maybe not a villain, kind of, sort of. Is she? We don't know. But I thought it was very important to create a character that is this kind of complex human being and that we haven't seen as much of to some extent in the superhero genre, in the comic genre, and some of the fantasy and sci-fi genre, which tends to be a little homogenous and to some extent kind of predictable oftentimes.
Yeah, so I think you kind of summed it up. We're not going to give too much more away, so you got to get Eve and the Faders. It's available in bookstores all across the country. And thanks for joining us this evening. Hopefully you get the copy of the book. It's available everywhere, Eve and the Faders. It's the first book in the Faders and Alpha series, and we're looking forward to hearing what you got to say.
And just visit BernetaHaynes.com if you want more information, want to read a sample, see the discussion questions, or just get in touch. The information will be at the bottom of this video. And you can always reach out if you have questions, if you have a book club you want us to talk at, all that good stuff. And stay tuned for more interesting discussions about Eve and the Faders and the Faders and Alpha series. This is the first installment of B.Y.O.B. Conversations with Berneta and Lornett. Thank you.
Cheers.